Looking at relationships in terms of how they develop or progress over time is only one way of looking at relationships. Another way to look at relationships is to look at something called dialectical tension. This is conflicts that arise when two opposing or incompatible forces exist simultaneously. Now, some textbooks will focus on relationships with dialectical tension, where the tension arises because one partner in the relationship wants one thing and the other partner wants something different, and the two things are mutually exclusive. And that certainly is an aspect of it, and it can be difficult to navigate. But to me, it's more interesting to look at the dialectical tension that arises in one person, because human beings are complicated creatures and we are perfectly capable of wanting two mutually exclusive things at the same time. In fact, we even have a saying for it. If I bake a cake and it is a beautiful cake and I want to keep this cake so that I can show it to people when they come visit and I can just admire my cake, but I also want to eat the cake, right? Well, we have that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too, because once you've eaten it, it's gone and you don't have it anymore. So that saying absolutely is just a metaphor for dialectical tension. Imagine a 4-year-old kid. 4-year-olds are kind of known for wanting to do things all by themselves. So the 4-year-old is trying to tie their shoes by themselves, but they can't quite get it, right? So mommy or daddy comes to help, and the kiddo will cry because they want to do it all by themselves, right? So mommy or daddy will go, all right, do it all by yourself. And then the kiddo will cry more because they need help. This child wants to tie their shoes by themselves with help, which is impossible. That is one of the, probably one of the earlier times in our lives that we're going to experience dialectical tension. It's one of the reasons that we call it the terrible twos, because 2-year-olds are just starting to become aware that they're going to have to make choices. 2-year-olds will have an absolute meltdown standing in a doorway because they realize they're going to have to make a choice between going outside and staying inside. And they can't have their cake and eat it too, right? You can't go outside while also being inside, and their brains are not quite mature enough yet to handle that. So that's why they'll have some sort of meltdown. And as a parent, there's not really a lot you can do about that. You just have to kind of wait till they are able to process it better. And unfortunately, this doesn't actually stop as we get older. It's not like you stop experiencing dialectical tension. There are going to be times in our lives where we are going to be pulled in two different directions. I've got here listed 3 different types of dialectical tension. These are kind of the basics. The first one is connection versus autonomy. The second is predictability versus novelty. And the third is openness versus privacy. The names are pretty self-explanatory. If you can figure out what the names mean, you probably are able to understand those different types of tension. Connection versus autonomy. We, as human beings, we need to feel connected to other people, but the more connected you are to other people, the more connections you have to other people, and the stronger those connections are, the less autonomy you have. Autonomy means being in charge of your own life, being able to make your own decisions, being captain of your own ship, being responsible for your own behavior, your own choices. And the more connected you are to other people, the more responsible you are to them, and the less in control of your own life you are, because you have to think about how your decisions affect those other people in your life. So we have a need to feel like we're in charge of our own lives. We have a need for autonomy, but that need will sometimes come in conflict with our need for connection. So we're often having to balance our need to be able to make our own decisions against our need to stay connected to other people. The next one, predictability versus novelty. We like for things to be predictable. We like to be able to count on things, right? We all have a comfort zone, but at the same time, we like things to be new and different. We like excitement. We get bored if things are too predictable. But by definition, things that are novel are not predictable. So we have to step outside of our comfort zone in order to experience novelty. So, for example, you might go out to dinner with friends every Friday, and you usually go to the same restaurant every single Friday, but you might want to change it up, right? If it gets to be too predictable, too much in a rut, too routine, you might say, hey, this Friday, we'll still go out as friends, right? That's our predictable part, but we might do a different restaurant. In fact, I had a student one time who said she had a group of friends where they were moving down the alphabet. So every Friday, they would go eat at a different restaurant, and they just moved down the alphabet.